Hi, Annie from Hoop Sisters here, and in this video I'm going to show you in Elegant Elements how to take large scale fabric and be able to match it so it looks good. If you're using smaller scale fabric, it may not necessarily have a reason to do this, but if you want to choose a large scale fabric, I'll show you a little tip on how to get it to match. Okay, the blocks I'm going to be using to show you how to match the large scale fabric are blocks D8 and E8 right here in the quilt. There's other areas, a lot of these other areas also apply, but those are just the blocks that I'm going to use for this demonstration. And just here's a photograph of the quilt. You have that with all your supplies in your organization folder too. Here is my block stitched out of my D8, and here's the beginning of my E8 block. And the dilemma we run into, and it's not as noticeable on this fabric, but other fabrics it might be, is you don't really want your dots to show an interruption in the quilt, I guess. So we want to make sure that it flows, that the print flows. So what I suggest you do is, I've already stitched out the first two steps. I have my battleizer hooped. I use gray thread for my placement stitch so that you guys can see the corner. And then I have my wool batting on top of it. And what I would suggest you do is, first of all, if this were sewn together, I'm going to kind of simulate that by putting, my nice crooked pin through that corner section and then again into the corner section of the E8 block. And I'll just put that in there nice and tight. And I'll do the same thing for this lower corner here. Right in the corner of D8 and then again through the corner of E8. And just to make sure I'm lined up good here, I like to try and put a pin through the side seam, and I'm going to make sure that it's touching that gold thread on the other side. So if it were sewn together, this is what it would look like. And then I'm going to take my fabric for this section, and I'm going to just try and take the print. Sometimes you might need to rotate your fabric. You can see that might work, but you want that fabric to line up with the fabric on the adjacent block. So as you can see, you're not going to get this 100% perfect every time, but you're going to get like in the 90 percentile, which is always good. But you can see how I've made my dots overlap, and you can make them overlap a little bit more if you want to. If you do that, you're going to have to perhaps cut your fabric a little bit larger, but you can see I can make them overlap that way. You can see this dot is right over the top of that dot. So I kind of like how this worked because it gives me my at least a ½ inch over the seam from my E8 block, which is in the hoop right now. So I'm going to just get those two to match as best I can, and then I'm going to put a pin right here to hold this in place. I'm just going to recheck, and that looks good. I think I'm ready to take this to the machine and sew my basting stitch to hold it down. So why don't you let me complete the block in its entirety, and we'll come back and we'll see how I did. Alright, I'm ready to stitch step 3, which is tacking down this piece of fabric. There's a pin in there, so I'm showing you this because I don't want anyone to run over the pin. So I'm going to do a little stitching to get started, and then I'm going to remove the pin. And I just do a little stitching just to kind of hold the fabric in place, and then I can complete my tack down. Alright, I have finished my E8 block. Time for the big reveal. So you can see how nicely the fabric just flows without interrupting the pattern. So that's just a little tip for you to be able to match large scale patterns of fabric on your Elegant Elements quilt. Thanks for watching the video.